Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we are joined by one of the greatest vocalists in jazz. This gentleman has been on the scene for over 25 years and has worked with many greats from Vaughn Freeman to Daniel Perez, Al Jarreau, John Hendricks, and Branford Marsalis, to name a few. He is a two-time Grammy Award-winning vocalist and composer, as well as a great songwriter and a fancy dresser. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, the legendary Mr. Kurt Elling. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Oh, man, it's good to see you, too. You know, Kurt, let's get into it. Hey, I wanted to know a little bit about your humble beginnings and your background. Now, I understand that you are from Chicago, born and raised, and grew up there. Now, I was interested in finding out more about your background. I understand that you sang in church. You came from a Lutheran church, and your dad conducted, choirs. And is that pretty much how you got into music, or you first heard music just maybe watching and listening to your father?
Yeah, he was a very busy church musician and a choral conductor, and he also taught high school music, choral arts, and band and everything like that.
Good.
So yeah, for sure, I was singing along and making up harmonies and things like that from before I can remember, from people just telling me about it.
Yeah. And you played instruments too. I understand that you played violin, piano, drums.
I attempted several instruments, but none of them really stuck. Definitely violin. They really wanted that to work for me, and I just could never get a sound out of it. It was excruciating. That's a very hard instrument to get a good sound out of.
Yeah. You know, one of the things, I like a story that you told many, many years ago. You said, I guess this is when you were maybe in 6th or 7th grade, you were watching TV and you saw the Woody Herman band. You said these guys were dressed in black dinner jackets, and Tony Bennett comes out with a white dinner jacket and says, I go from rags to riches. And I guess that whole thing just set it off for you, where you're like, I want to be this guy. I want to sing like this. Was that a turning point for you?
I don't know if it was a turning point, but I remember having those thoughts and saying, man, the guy you want to be is the guy comes out in the white dinner jacket and then sings like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, a turning point. I'm sure it was much too early, but seeds getting planted.
Yeah. And also something that you did that was pretty incredible in high school. You sang for over 40,000 people. You sang the national anthem. Man, what was that like for you, being, a young teenager doing that?
Oh, you mean at the Cubs game?
Yeah.
Oh man, it was fun. It was thrilling, but at the time I wasn't counting all the folks or anything. It was just like free tickets to a Cubs game. That's what I was excited about. I could stand on the field. I grabbed a couple of pieces of grass off the field, and Chicago guy, Cubs fans, that's what we got to be. Cubs are Sox. Now I've married into a Sox loving family, so I move over to them as well. I just want whatever's best for the city. That's all I ever care about.
So I guess maybe when you were in middle school, high school, and getting into your teenage years, did you realize, or I guess people around you, like your family, realized, like, Kurt's got a nice voice, he can sing? I mean, did you say to yourself at that point, you know what, maybe I should do something with this? Or you just, I guess, kept singing through school and wanted to develop something with that?
Yeah, I just kept singing all the time. I don't think anybody was thinking, certainly nobody was thinking Kurt's going to be a jazz singer, including me. It wasn't in anybody's purview. And, but, I think they knew that I had a nice voice, but, that's not a show business family. Nobody had any acquaintance with anything like that. Yeah. I think the closest that it would have been that I would have been another church musician, but I don't see that happening. I didn't see it then. I come from very we're church people who attend to farmers out on the plains. My dad was a church musician. His dad was a Lutheran minister. I have 8 or 9 Lutheran ministers who are my brother-in-law, cousin, first cousin, second cousin, nephew, uncle, and we're all scattered throughout the Midwest by and large. And so, you know, when we get together as a family of 70 or 80 people at this point for Thanksgiving, it's, you know, we drink coffee, you know, we drink coffee and we sing hymns in 4-part harmony. And that's what we do together. And that allows us to, you know, in a family of that size, not talk about politics and try to focus on the things that keep the family together. But there's nobody in show business besides me. It's kind of a little bit unheard of. I'm a little bit of an outlier, but I mean, they accept me and they love me, and we're all on the same team at this point, and they understand that I'm who I am.
Yeah. You know, and Kurt, also, I guess by the time you got into college, that's when you really discovered jazz. I guess you were listening to people like Dexter Gordon and Herbie Hancock, and I guess, you know, you heard something. And was that, I guess, right around that time, you're like, you know, I think I want to pursue a career in jazz. And I think you were listening to Mark Murphy as well, didn't you? Wasn't he instrumental?
Yeah, I got to hear Mark up in Minnesota. I was going to school up in Minnesota, and I heard him at the Artist Quarter.
Yeah,
that might have been a turning point, but it still wasn't in my mind to do this. I didn't really understand that this was a life I could have. I couldn't understand the outlines of it. But musicians, time and again, encouraged me. You know, we'd have these members of the then Tonight Show band when it was still Doc Severinsen and such, and it was a big band. So those cats would come out, as they always did, for clinics and such like. And I remember a couple of them, you know, were backstage, and I had sung a couple of numbers. They're like, "Son, are you thinking about this?" I said, "Thinking about what?" I said, I wouldn't say this to, you know, there's 50,000 trumpet players and 100,000 saxophone players and how many drummers who want to have this life. But man, you are swinging and you got a thing, and listen to how people responded. You should be. And that was the start of jazz musicians encouraging me and pointing me toward this life. And then that expanded when I came to Chicago to go to graduate school. And then I was hanging out, as you mentioned, Von Freeman before, and Eddie Johnson, a member of the original Louis Jordan band, was still kicking in Chicago. And time and again, they'd put their hands on my shoulders and they'd say, you know, sing again. You know, you got it. Where do you think you're going? You're with us. You're one of us. And I'd say, really? Because I loved it so much, and that's the kind of approval that I was craving. And then John Hendricks took me under his wing, and it was just, I really have to thank the musicians for giving me my vocation. I wouldn't have seen it. I would have been just a distant figment of some kind. Yeah,
that's incredible, man. You know, and I guess you know, when you're working on that graduate degree, I understand that you finally made a decision and you left. You only needed one more credit to get that master's. You pursued the career, but I guess a good spot for you to really start honing your skills was what Green Mill in Chicago. That place, I guess you were cutting your teeth at that place, performing on a weekly basis. You know,
it's true. I had a gig there that lasted for about 8 years on Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, something like that.
Yeah.
And that was the real workshop. That was the hothouse to put the band together, to develop a bunch of to develop material, to you know, get my my performance chops together, you know, to know how to string sets together, to know what to say in between tunes. That's the kind of thing that young people need so much more of today, that they don't have access to. So many of them are coming up through conservatories and through music schools. And as I say to them, when I'm doing master classes and such, you know, a recital is not a concert. A concert is not a gig. It's not for paying. You're not working for paying people. When you do a recital, you're punching your ticket for academic heads and your peers. That's not the same thing as people are paying money and you need to entertain them and you need to give them a reason to be there besides you can sing real well or play real well. And that's a whole aspect of the performance machinery that goes largely undeveloped among jazz people, which is part of why we have a hard time connecting with audiences, is that we just don't have that that same experience that people used to have playing 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah.
And learning how to keep the audience in their chairs or rising up out of their chairs to applaud.
Yeah, that's a good point that you make. And I guess at that club, as you're doing your weekly performances there, I guess through a friend you ended up meeting the Lawrence Hopgood.
Yeah, he was at the Green Mill, and we started a very, very long conversation that lasted whatever 15 years or so, about music and about charts and arranging and our heroes. And we had a good long run together. I'm very proud of the work that we did together. But definitely that came out of the mill.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And wasn't it during that time period when you were gigging that I guess a friend, or you did a demo and a friend got that tape to Bruce Lundvall at Blue Note Records? And
yeah,
is that right? How it began?
Essentially, yeah. We demoed up with some things because I wanted to have some, in those days, cassettes to sell off of the stand, at least that. And then that started to circulate a little bit, and it got to Bruce Lundvall for sure. And then he called me. Bruce did from his car phone, which in those days was a very big deal. People didn't really have those as a rule. And he came out to hear me, and within about 6 months, I was, the paperwork was signed, and we were back in the studio putting a couple of more cuts down to fill out a record length situation for Blue Note. And then that, they put out our demo essentially, and that was nominated for a Grammy. Yeah.
Kurt, I love the live recording that you did at the Green Mill. That was incredible. When I heard that your take on Wayne Shorter's Night Dreamer, man, that was really something else. And also one of the things, looking into your background, man, you're really into poetry too. Because when I look at a lot of the lyrics, some of the songs that you write, I'm like, man, this is like some serious poetry. It's really, really deep. But just your rendition of that was incredible. And speaking of Wayne Shorter, I mean, I've always said, I think at some point Kurt just needs to do a recording of all Wayne Shorter tunes, put out a recording of all of his music, because over the years you've always held him in high regard. He's one of the greatest living composers. And I'm thinking, even the music that you've sang over the years, that's as Kurt listens to the same thing as me. I mean, whether it's Earth, Wind and Fire, Weather Report, Jaco Pastorius, the Pat Metheny Group, and just how you take these songs, you and Lawrence Hopgood, you guys arrange these songs, and I'm like, wow, this is really amazing. For instance, even on Man in the Air, when you did Manual 6/8, the Pat Metheny tune, that was something else. Man, I listen to that song every day.
All right.
Every day. Yeah, it's really good, the way that you sang it.
Pat wrote a beautiful thing. Pat wrote a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you started making a name for yourself. I was going to ask you, what was it like, man, working with that time when you sang with John Hendricks and Al Jarreau?
Oh, man, it was gorgeous. You're talking about maybe the performance at North Sea.
That's exactly. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And the rehearsals were as much fun as the performance. They were just such heroes of mine, and such beautiful cats, and so generous, and they trusted me. John was not one at that point to be able to navigate a big band arrangement. Just in terms of, like, hey, dude, you're only supposed to take 2 choruses and then we move on. Once he would start blowing, he would just go until he was done. Or, hey, now there's a drum solo, or now there's this. And so I was a little bit sort of helping both of them, in the moment. And that was a privilege for me. I don't say that by way of pointing out any weaknesses in their performance, just that it was such a privilege for me, in the way that it is for the young protege to be an assist.
Yeah.
Let me pass the hero the ball. Let me make sure the hero is righteous on this occasion when I can see that his knee hurts a little bit or something. And that was I remember that very dearly, and I embraced that memory.
Yeah, that was special. Tell me about Dedicated to You, man. That was great. Tribute to Coltrane and Johnny Hartman. I love that. My favorite cut on there is Dedicated to You. The song, just beautiful. I actually had one of your former band members on about a month ago, Ulysses Owens. Oh, he loves you to death, man. He praises you. He said, Kurt is always just, working on something new. We may sing something, and he says, Kurt is already working on something else. But tell me about that recording. That's also your very first Grammy, because I guess you've been nominated, like 13 times or something like that. That was your first Grammy. Tell me about that recording. Why did you choose, that, I guess, to pay tribute to Coltrane and Johnny Hartman?
Yeah. Well, I love that partnership. It's one of the great singer instrumentalist partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm proud of that record because it was recorded live at Jazz at Lincoln Center. And, the performances came off pretty well. And I was able to make a relationship with Ernie Watts coming out of that recording. It was a lovely occasion where we could again tip our hats to the heroes who have preceded us, but not be bound by their interpretations. And Lawrence came up with some marvelous string arrangements for that record, and it swings, and we had a ball. I'm proud of that one.
Yeah. I love all your stuff, man. As I mentioned before, Man in the Air is probably my personal favorite. I just love that recording. Everything on it is just incredible. And even the Weather Report tune that you did, Time to Say Goodbye. I believe that was from their 8:30 album that they did back in the 70s. But that's a really nice one. And I've seen you perform that with an orchestra as well. Tell me about you and Daniel Perez. How did you guys hook up and meet? You guys, of course, have been working together quite a bit. You guys are going to be doing some stuff again, I guess, come the new year. But your second Grammy, Secret of the Best Stories, that's an amazing recording. Tell me about how you guys hook up and collaborate, because it seems like a great marriage between the two of you.
Well, we've known each other for a bunch of years, but we've both been so busy. And this was the first occasion, he was just, he had some open dates because Wayne's health is not the greatest right now. And that band was not touring. And for the first time in 18 years, he wasn't going to be in that orbit as much on the road. And he and I have been circling around each other for years and years. He just has such a generous spirit, and is such a generous musician. And the timing of it just worked out. And then it was a matter of our trying to find that space where the both of us, I wouldn't even say are comfortable, because I think we challenged each other quite a lot, which is part of the point of a productive collaboration. And so I look forward to hitting with him again. And, we were able to write a bunch of new material together and, come up with some new tricks and startle each other, which is, again, the point.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, are there any particular performers that you really watched a lot, Kurt, coming up? Because, for instance, when I saw you recently, and I've seen you in concert a few times, seen you at the Kennedy Center as well, but you have great stage presence. You have people who are great singers, but you have good stage presence. And it's almost like you're a throwback to some of the old singers, just the way you move, the grunts, the groans, just how you get around on the stage. And it's just amazing. You have great stage presence. Is that something that you just learned over the years, performing, whether in clubs or, because you've been performing for, as I said, 25, 30 years, but Not everyone can say that. And I've seen many jazz singers who have great voices, but no stage presence. They just stand there and they sing. But you're like, you're walking up and down. Yeah, you're walking up and down the stage, and I love your presence, man. It's really good.
Well, this harkens back to the stuff that we were talking about earlier. I mean, I have made a conscious effort to develop a throughway so that there's some overriding concept behind, or thread that ties together the pieces that we're doing.
Yeah.
On a given occasion. And I did study, I mean, I studied John Hendricks, I studied Mark Murphy, I studied, you know, in their presence, I studied them and how they took care of business on the stage. And I paid attention to how Von Freeman enjoyed himself in between songs. I paid attention to how, you know, the whole generation of cats who preceded me, you know, took care of business in between songs, and how they stood and how they treated the room. And like I say, that's the kind of thing that young people these days don't have even exposure to, except through YouTube and whatnot. But they tend not to, people tend not to focus on the stage craft aspect. You just go to the performances and you're wowed by the performances, but then it's edited out when the guy starts talking. After the song is over, or to introduce the next song. And that's a whole art form of things that need to be studied and reconnoitered with. And it's available out there, but the in-person examples tend not to exist.
Yeah. Hey, man, tell me about Super Blue, your latest recording. Amazing. You and Charlie Hunter and the guys on there are just killing it. And, you know, when I first heard it, I had to stop. I said, you know, this is like almost like a departure from anything that Kurt would do. And the more I listened to it, I fell in love with it. I mean, it's great. Probably my two favorite cuts on there are The Seed and Can't Make It With Your Brain. Man, that's got to be the funkiest song, you know, just the rhythm, boom, 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 you know, how it starts up. And I'm like, man, this is great. But, and also congratulations, you've been nominated for a Grammy for that. I think you're going to win too. That is smoked. But what is the brainchild behind that? I mean, Super Blue, what is it all about? What were you trying to say on that recording?
Well, you know, this is another example where I've been circling around another overcompetent collaborator. And that would, in this case, be Charlie Hunter, who plays a hybrid guitar, a custom hybrid guitar. For those people who haven't caught him before, it's amazing. He's so funky, and it's not just, so he plays, you know, he plays the bass part, and he also plays the rhythm guitar part, and also solos at the same time on the same neck of the same acts.
Yeah.
He and I have been pals. We were both signed to Blue Note about the same time, a century ago. And, you know, we just always like hanging out with each other and palling around. And COVID hit, and neither one of us were able to tour. And that's what made Super Blue possible. So Charlie went into the studio with a couple of the guys from this band, Butcher Brown, which is a very killing bunch of studs in the backbeat world. And they laid down a bunch of tracks, just demoed tracks. And then it was up to me to find or write the melodies and write the lyrics and such like, and add whatever else was going to happen. And that's basically what went down. And so it was a little bit of a survival experiment, because I was losing my mind, like so many people, where I needed something bigger than myself in my own situation to handle. And that ended up being Super Blue. And so I'm proud of that too. We've been having a great time touring that.
Yeah, amazing recording. Hey, I wanted to do a little segment real quick before I let you go. I wanted to name some singers, and you can just say the first thing that comes to your mind. Kurt, there's no right or wrong answer. Name some vocalists that you're I'm sure influenced by or like. First one is Nat King Cole.
Well, Nat, I mean, super gifted and I mean, so swinging. I really prefer so much of his early stuff to when he, I mean, I'm not mad at the stuff when he became a big pop star, and he deserved to become a big pop star. And he's fortunate that it was still at a time when popular taste was the same thing as good taste, because then he could thrive in that atmosphere.
Yeah.
And he set such an example of nonchalance and grace, and a kind of debonair delivery that I think has not been paralleled at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Next name, Jimmy Rushing.
Oh, Mr. 5x5. Well, I mean, you know, super excitement and throwdown, and you can see the look on my face, how much joy from him, man. Fabulous, Jimmy Rushing, absolutely, and underrated as a writer of blues tunes.
Mm-hmm. Next name, Frank Sinatra.
Well, the biggest cheese of all the cheeses. There are two ways to, in any of these situations, when you write, when you go into a studio or into a concert, and you do some of these charts that were bespoke for him. There's two ways to sing those charts. One of them is to sing them basically in the Sinatra mold.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way is just wrong. He just put the stamp on that stuff. And anybody who comes in there, like, whatever, not to name names, but a Rod Stewart or whatever, that stuff is just silly.
Yeah.
Sinatra was the man, and we're all just in his room, even now.
Yeah. Next name, John Hendricks. We mentioned him before, but John Hendricks.
Well, I mean, the supreme genius of the jazz lyric, as they say, the James Joyce of jive, a marvelous, not only lyricist, but a profound performer, very funny, really bringing a couple of generations of performance style into the mix, and one of the great bebop jazz singers to have ever done it, man.
Yeah. Next name, Joe Williams.
Joe Williams, also underheralded in the world. That profound voice of his romantic delivery, shouting the blues in the most profound and masculine way possible. Just a real hero.
Yeah. Next name, Al Jarreau.
God bless Al. Finding all those new tricks, all those new ways to be a jazz singer. Those great records he made with David Sanborn back in the heyday. Just a lovely, lovely cat, man, and such a thrilling performer, and so liberated and free. I just adore him.
Yeah. Next name, George Benson.
Well, George, I mean, anytime you get somebody with that broad number of abilities, as a performer, obviously as an instrumentalist, and then with that beautiful, gorgeous, lacquered voice of his, who's not going to be knocked out by that?
Yeah. Next name, Gregory Porter.
Gregory, really finding his way. I'll be interested to see. I mean, he's a friend, and I love him, and I'm super proud of him if that's something I'm able to be. I don't know if he's going to stay specifically in the jazz world or not, but I mean, obviously the sound of his voice is to be reckoned with, and his heart's in the right place, and I wish him well, and I just want to see him do the best work he possibly can do, and applaud him along the way.
Yeah. There's another name that I forgot to mention earlier. He's in this mix too, and we mentioned him earlier, Johnny Hartman.
Johnny, one of the natural singers, of all time. It's interesting because what he was able to do was based almost completely, strictly on the timbre of his voice. Not really an innovator as such, not a searching singer, just a completely natural delivery, which is very rare and hard to come by.
Yeah. Now, Kurt, I wanted to ask you, I know that you've lived in New York for quite a while, but you recently made the move, I think, back to Chicago, didn't you? And I was reading somewhere in regard to, I think, your daughter's schooling or something like that. You wanted to move back, and I guess it was in the works. You guys have been talking about it, but you finally made the move, what, like a year or two ago?
It was in the middle of COVID, yeah. A couple of
Wow.
summers. It was
Yeah.
kooky. We had to do it. You know, you do what you need to do for your kids. So that's all just a part of it.
Yeah, I got you. Now, what's next for 2022? What are we going to see from Kurt Elling? Because I mentioned earlier when I was talking to Ulysses, he says you are always on to 2 or 3 things. You're just constantly, working on something. It never stops. So what are we going to see from Kurt Elling in 2022?
Well, let's see. I know that the first part of the year I'm recording a newly composed jazz mass, a sacred work over in San Francisco, written by Chris Walden. I know that I'm going down to Panama to do a concert of a bunch of different things with Danilo and a big band that he's putting together down there. I haven't seen that material yet. I know that Charlie and I are working on Super Blue 2. So we'll see what that's going to become. I've already I'm putting in the can a big band record with Tommy Smith and the Scottish National Jazz Orchestra. Let's see what else. I'm recording a new big piece down in Texas in maybe March, something like that. And then of course the staged musical, The Big Blind, we're going to be taking that on some more outings. I'm just always moving forward, like you say, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Hopefully I'll get a chance to see you this upcoming year. I caught you at the Kennedy Center, and of course you're not doing the Herbie Hancock thing now because of COVID. I think the last time they had that was 2019, and hope to see you back at Keystone Corner, man. That was fantastic, and it's interesting. All the people that I believe it was Frida Payne. I was talking to her, and they had Dee Dee there, then you were there, then Frida was there, and hopefully you'll get back there again because Todd is it's the 50th anniversary of Keystone Corner, when he had it in San Francisco. So he's bringing everyone back, from Ron Carter to the singers, Kenny Garrett, you name it, Kenny Barron, everyone's coming through there. So hopefully you'll make it back again sometime in 2022. It'd be great to see you.
I hope that'll be the case.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being on Jazz Talk today. Kurt, you're a class act. Love you, man. Love your music. And I'm excited to see what's next, and this wonderful music that you bring. Hang on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from the great Kurt Elling. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.